my dear student, welcome back in your English second paper class. In my previous class, I have already discussed what is imperative sentence and what is assertive sentence, and how we can change from imperative to assertive or assertive to imperative. That times I focused on how the assertive sentence starts, actually based on person, second person or first person or third person, how the assertive sentence starts. But today I am going to start with a new lesson. It also sentence, assertive sentence and exclamatory sentence. You know what is assertive sentence? An assertive sentence makes a statement about a person, a thing or an event. An assertive sentence may be positive or negative. It is the definition of assertive sentence, but you have to know how the assertive sentence may start. You know, assertive sentence may start with subject and verb. So it's assertive sentence, but today our main topic is exclamatory sentence. I have already discussed what is assertive sentence. Do you know what is exclamatory sentence? Okay, an exclamatory sentence expresses strong emotion. When a sentence expresses excitement, joy, wonder, sorrow, is called exclamatory sentence. An exclamatory sentence may start with how or what, but when the exclamatory sentence starts with how, then after how we find an adjective. When the exclamatory sentence starts with what, then a noun follows it. After what we find a noun, and at the end we will find a note of exclamation mark. But sometimes it may start with if, where, had, would that, could, and at the end we find a note of exclamation. And also it may start with a sort of exclamatory words like hurrah, alas. So you have already know what is exclamatory sentence. It's the definition of exclamatory sentence. So you know how the exclamatory sentence may start. The exclamatory sentence may start with how, what, if, where, could, had, would that, or short exclamatory words like hurrah, alas, bravo. With these words, an exclamatory sentence may start. So a basic difference between assertive sentence and exclamatory sentence is an assertive sentence may start with subject and verb, but we find subject and verb at the end of an assertive sentence. Or an exclamatory sentence may start with what or how, but assertive sentence start with subject and verb. So my dear students, our today's topic is assertive and exclamatory sentence. Assertive and exclamatory sentence. We already have known what is assertive sentence and what is exclamatory sentence, but now we are going to start how we can change an assertive sentence to exclamatory sentence. So dear student, if I give you some example, you can understand the exclamatory sentence easily. You see, an exclamatory sentence may start with how. When the sentence starts with how, then an adjective follows. How follows an adjective. How beautiful. But an exclamatory sentence may start with what, but after what we find a noun. And exclamatory sentence may start with if, where, would that, could, had, and at the end we find exclamation mark. And also I have already said an exclamatory sentence may start with some short exclamatory words like alas, hurrah, and we use exclamation mark after the short exclamatory words, but at the end we use full stop. So these are exclamatory sentence. But you know, sentence may start with subject and verb. Just here you see the scenery. The scenery is. So here the subject and verb at the end of an exclamatory sentence, but an assertive sentence start with subject and verb, and instead of how we can use very and adjective. beautiful. So it's very simple. The basic difference between assertive and exclamatory: an assertive sentence may start with subject and verb, but we find subject and verb at the end of an exclamatory sentence. And instead of how, we can use very, or instead of very, we can use how at the in the exclamatory sentence. And you see here, am is also a subject and verb. I am. We can use a very or great. I am a great fool, and we can use full stop. So assertive sentence starts with verb, and we can use very or great instead of how or what. But when we find if, we can use subject plus wish and next part. I would be a queen. So here, when we find, if you find if, where, would, had, then you can use subject plus wish and next part. Instead of if or had or where, you can use subject plus wish. And when you find short exclamatory words, you can use it is a matter of great sorrow that, and next part, that I have lost the pen. Dear student, before going to changing assertive to exclamatory or exclamatory to assertive, you have some basic idea just like this. I have already mentioned you, an assertive sentence starts with subject and verb, at the end we find full stop. But an exclamatory sentence starts with how or what, and at the end we find exclamation mark. Or an exclamatory sentence may start with if, where, had, would, that, then we use exclamation mark at the end. So you need to know some basic things. When you find very or great in assertive sentence, only very or great, then you can use how at the beginning of an exclamatory sentence. Or when exclamatory sentence starts with how, you can use very or great in the assertive sentence. When you find a or an plus very or great, the first one is without a or an, but the next one is a or an plus very or great, then you can use what and what plus a or an. And when you find only an adjective, then you can use how. Instead of, you can use how plus adjective. When you find any adjective in the assertive sentence, you can use how plus adjective. When you find a or an plus noun, you can use what plus a or an. Or when you find a or an plus adjective plus noun, then you can use what plus a or an. When you find subject plus wish plus subject in assertive sentence, you can use if, where, had, or would, that plus subject at the very beginning of an exclamatory sentence. So vice versa, you can change from assertive to exclamatory or exclamatory to assertive by using, by following these words or phrase. Okay. So my dear student, I have already mentioned you that when we find very or great in an assertive sentence, we use how and the adjective. Then we can use the subject and verb and note of exclamation mark. So when we find very or great without a or an, we use how at the very beginning of an exclamatory sentence, and how follows an adjective, and we must use at the end subject and verb. But assertive sentence, we find subject and verb at the very beginning of an assertive sentence. So like this, you see, we find very, so we can use how, and then adjective, how happy, and then subject and verb, a success successful man is. So a successful man is subject and verb. I write at the end of the exclamatory sentence. And you see here, very happy. So how happy, and then subject and verb. I am now. So when you find very or great without a or an, you can start the exclamatory sentence with how plus adjective, and at the end you can write subject and verb. But my dear student, if you find a or an plus very or great, you can use what at the very beginning of the exclamatory sentence, then a or an. But here we use a or an depend on noun or adjective. Here good, so we can write a, what a good habit. I already mentioned you what follows a noun. Here a good habit is a noun, good habit, and then we can use the subject and verb, because at the end we should write subject and verb of an exclamatory sentence. So here you find a very, when we find a very or a great, a or an plus very or great, we use what plus a or an, and what follows a noun. Here you see also a very excellent, so we can use what a, I already mentioned you, we write a or an depends on adjective or noun. So excellent, the first sound is vowel, so we should write an excellent idea, and then subject and verb. If the subject and verb is it is a introductory, and is a verb, then if you wish you don't write it, we need not to write it, but if you write, no problem. So the next one, a very simple so we use what, then a or an, because simple before simple, so a simple life, and then subject and verb, he led. So it's very clear what follows a noun, but how follows an adjective. And an assertive sentence, in the assertive sentence we find subject and verb first, but in the exclamatory sentence we write subject and verb at the end of the sentence. So it's clear, my dear student. If we find subject plus which plus subject, we can use if, where, had, would, that, could at the very beginning of an exclamatory sentence. But here we find where. If we find where, we can start the exclamatory sentence with where, just like this, where, then subject, then next part, where I a bird, and at the end we use exclamation mark. Or if or we can use if instead of subject plus which. If I were a bird, if I were a bird, then here you see subject plus which plus subject and had. If we find had, we can use had directly, and then subject, had I been a great teacher. When you find had, or you can use if instead of subject plus which, if I had been a great teacher. And here you see, you find where, you can write where, or you can write if instead of subject plus which. Here, if I were a millennia. Millennia. So very simple. When you find subject plus wish, you can use if, or you can use where. If you find where, you can use had if you find had in the assertive sentence, or you can find would, that, or could, or you can use directly if. But vice versa, when you find where, you can use subject plus wish plus subject, and you must use where. But when you find if, you can write subject plus wish plus subject, but you need not write if. But when you find had or where, you must write had or where after the subject. If you find it is a matter of joy that, or it is a matter of sorrow that, then you can use a short exclamatory words instead of this, like this. If you find it is a matter of joy that, you can use hurrah. Hurrah, and use exclamation, note of exclamation. Then next part, we have won the match. And at the end, we use full stop. Like this, if you find it is a matter of sorrow that, you can use alas and note of exclamation mark. And the next part, he is undone. But at the end, we use full stop. So, and vice versa, if you find alas, you can use it is a matter of sorrow that. And if you find hurrah, you can write it is a matter of joy that. Okay, so thus we can change assertive to exclamatory, or exclamatory to assertive sentence. So my dear student, I want to repeat the whole class. First, I mentioned you what is assertive sentence. An assertive sentence makes a statement about a person, a thing, or an event. It may be positive or it may be negative. An assertive sentence may start with subject and verb. You can find very or great with a or an, or without a or an, or you can find a or an plus adjective plus noun. You can find only adjective in the assertive sentence, and also you can find subject plus wish plus subject. But in the exclamatory sentence, I have already told you the definition of an exclamatory sentence. An exclamatory sentence expresses strong emotion. It expresses excitement, joy, wonder, sorrow. Exclamatory sentence may start with how or what, but how follows an adjective, what follows a noun. And also an exclamatory sentence may start with if, where, would, that, could, had, and at the end we find exclamation mark. And also it may start with some short exclamatory words like hurrah, bravo, alas. So this way we can identify, or we can find out assertive or exclamatory. And also I discussed how we can change from assertive to exclamatory, or exclamatory to assertive. You know, when you change speech from direct to indirect, you must know how we can change assertive to exclamatory or exclamatory to assertive. And also when you are asked to use exclamation mark, then you must identify first how exclamatory sentence starts and where we can use note of exclamation mark. And also when you are going to use article, you already observed that after what we can use a or an. So that's for today, my dear student, but I would like to give you homework. This 10 sentence I gave you, you will do this. You will change from assertive to exclamatory or exclamatory to assertive, and I hope you will show it to your class teacher when the school will be opened. So best of luck. Goodbye.